Greetings and salutations. And I have to say this. Yeah, it's Terraria, but I've never actually played hardcore till now. This is going to be my hardcore Terraria playthrough, or at least as much as possible before my character bites the dust. So, we are just going to give it a grand old give it a good try. Just going to harvest some wood and then I'm going to get up out of here and go to another location. Not that it matters, because as soon as my character dies, it's over with anyway. So now that's the one thing I do like. Unlike Minecraft, right? Like with Minecraft, you will make a hardcore world, and the actual world gets deleted, the whole thing. In this, your character dies and is just dead permanently. And I kind of like this better for that regard. Because now it's like, okay, the world doesn't get deleted, so all of the progress you made isn't gone, and you could use the world somewhere else. So you could just bring somebody else to the world and use it. So you don't lose really everything. Excuse me, everything. Well, that's not good. Looks like we're not going this way. Looks like we're going the other way. But yeah, this is something I've never done. Not because I've been really afraid of it, which you'd think, well, hardcore, you're losing your character permanently. Yeah, there's that trepidation, like, okay, you lose a character, it sucks, right? Yeah, that's true. It does suck to lose a character. But at the same time, because I've never done it, I don't know. I figured give it a shot. Give it the old college try. And we'll just see how it happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it all falls out. And I'm hoping for the best. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is I am going to be playing more Hearthstone. Mostly because I want to make a run to Legend. Whether or not I can actually make Legend is another thing. Highest I've ever made was Diamond 5. So wanting to make that Legend run is going to be a bit of a chore. You know what? We're going to make some of these. But yeah, making that Legend run is a bit of a chore. So I'm just hoping I can do it. Right now, I think I'm gold. I'm not gold. I'm silver 2? Something like that. And then on April 3rd, I've got a new treat coming up for everybody that likes the Call of Duty series. You know how I told everybody I don't play Warzone? I don't. But I'm gonna. And you'll see why I don't play Warzone. It's gonna be well, an adventure, we'll just say that. And now Activision is also saying that they're gonna crack down on cheaters again, which I hope they do. Like, I really hope they do. Because what you'll end up having is you'll end up having a whole bunch of people that are going to get, pinched for cheating, and when they do, they're going to be kind of upset that they got caught. Okay, well, this doesn't help much either, so... Well, sand on both sides. That's never a good sign. So I can get sandstorms. So it's looking like a flat land angle, huh? You know what I'm going to make this time? A really big pyramid. the urge to hit letter E for grappling hook is just absolutely astronomical. And I don't even have a grappling hook because I just started. But just the I want to. Like, that's how many times I've played a high level character on here. And I say high level, but there's no actual levels. Alright. So I'm thinking, if over here's the spawn point, I cut down all the trees and I level off the entire area here. Of course, I'm not going to have time, because the day's almost over. And I really don't want to be out at night having to worry about zombies. This reminds me of, by the way, I'm going to segue into and out of a lot of things. This is starting to remind me already of a webtoon my Indonesian friend got me reading. The Strongest Florist. I started reading it, and that is just... It's a wacky, wacky webtoon, but I love it. And that's the thing is, like, the people that made Terraria, Relogic, they didn't... I don't know if they've ever said that they're going to make a second one, but they should. I mean, realistically, they should just make another. Or as many as they can possibly put together. Like, if they were to make an actual bigger version of this, and I don't mean, like, not even 3D, because then it would kind of lose its charm. Right? The charm of Terraria is the fact that it's not in 3D. But if they were to make something very similar... I can make a little hovel and hide in it for the time being. Because I am going to make a really large pyramid. So yeah, looks like we're going the hovel angle. At least for now. That way I can be safe from the zombies for now. I can still tunnel to get the pyramid kind of built up in that regard. So I'm not missing out on, I'm not losing out on time, and I'm not just going to be sitting there throughout the entire night. No, I've been reading The Strongest Florist, and it really does remind me of Terraria a lot, in the way that you can pretty much kind of do anything you want to in this game, because it's more of a sandbox game in that regard. There is progression, but it's not like it's mandatory progression. So that's where the distinction comes in. The other kind of key takeaway from it is, with it not being mandatory progression, it raises many interesting questions. Like, what if they made a Terraria MMO? And I don't mean, like, with, like, property, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Like, you could build anywhere. People could lock their doors. Kind of like Rust. You know how you can build with Rust and you kind of have, like, a whole property thing? And then every so often they would just, like, dump the servers. Terraria could technically do that, and I think it would go over very well. I think it would go over extremely well. I think it would be well embraced, personally. That allows the collection of vines as rope, which is a good thing, because then I can just go through caves and not have to worry. But no, if they were to do that, realistically speaking, let's look at it from that perspective. Let's say Terraria was to make a game where you could have. Why do I not have enough for furnace? Do I just not have enough cobblestone or stone block? Probably not. I'll just put dirt back in its place. Dude, don't be opening that, you fool. Imagine if the NPCs were hardcore as well. Wrap your head around that one for a second. NPCs die and they never come back. Oof. That'd make the game tougher, wouldn't it? Make it a lot tougher in my estimation. But if they were to make a game where it's an MMO and you can't really like claim property in the regards that, you know, it's your property and then no one else can get to it. But if they were to put something together where you could essentially have that property, it would be really interesting because then you could look at it from the perspective of you set up this area, you lock everyone else out, kind of like Rust, right? You lock the door and you have to have enough stuff in your stash to maintain it. So like you would need the wood or whatever resource you farmed from the area. But instead of making it 2D, they would have to almost make it 3-dimensional. I mean, even then, having a game like Terraria 3-dimensionally, I'm going to be pouring myself a cup of coffee here, but as an MMO, it would be a social sandbox. I think it would go over well, honestly. Would it be hard to maintain? Yeah, I think there would be a level of maintenance to it that is not something that I think Relogic is quite ready for. The servers would be obviously run by Steam, but I think it'd be a hit. I honestly do. I think that, especially if you have like random bosses, random stuff. So what would it be? What would happen is you would have a sense of you'd have individualized loot, but it would be with a caveat. Okay. So let's say a random world boss comes in, say Eye of Cthulhu, 3D Eye of Cthulhu, and it starts harassing all the players in the world. Just starts flying from place to place, attacking them. You would have to have people who have a higher threat mechanic attack it so that it would go, and you could put threat mechanics on it. And you basically have them be attacking the boss, which then causes the boss to try to go toward them more often. Not completely, because you don't want to make it too easy. And then you have that set up so that everybody that participates with a percentage of the boss's damage that is dealt to him gets an individualized loot drop in their inventory. Which will promote trading. You would have an economy of trading that happened. And the reason why you'd have an economy with trading that happens is because some players would have certain items get available to them that wouldn't be available to others, and so on and so forth. So you would have an entire thing of where certain players are like, oh, I got the Mask of Cthulhu. It's a vanity item that has certain modifiers versus, say, NPCs, right? So, like, an NPC sees you with that mask on and decides to be afraid of you because of it being, well, being a mask that's horrifying, or what have you. So, you'd have that modifier of, you know, your, what's the words I'm looking for here? Your vanity items would have certain modifiers attached to them based on well, everything. Almost ran out of space to kill the zombies. That'd have been very bad, wouldn't it? And you could have, you know, enchanted items that say has a chance, much like you have here with the suffixes and everything. It's like extra damage, extra knockback. Except there wouldn't be, well, you could do knockback, but it would be minimal. You could have instead, you know, plus to demon slaying. And it would be, you know, the demon eyes and Eye of Cthulhu or anything that would be labeled a demon, you do more damage to, so on and so forth. I mean, it's something to consider. I'm not saying it's flawless, because it's not. In fact, it's quite flawed from the ground up. But just being able to have that Terraria style experience in an MMO concurrent world, and just make it like a social sandbox. Because the only reason I brought it up is because I'm looking forward to Ashes of Creation. 100%. I have been reading about Ashes of Creation. I've been looking at it, and it is by far what I would call one of the most interesting titles I see on the horizon. And I hope they don't botch it. I really hope they don't botch it. No box price, pay to play. But if you think about it, pay to play, at least it's not like with EVE Online where it was, you know, there was a box price and it was pay to play, and then they went free to play, but if you paid, you got a bonus. It's like, So it makes, you know, I like the whole pay to play option, but no box price. I think that's a smart move on Ashes of Creation's development. The fact that you can be anything you want, and you could do whatever you want in the game. So if you wanted to do like animal husbandry and go around making exotic mounts, you can do that. That could be your entire job if you wanted to. And your notoriety would be, you would gain and lose notoriety based upon that. Which would, I mean, that right there is just incredible. It's just something that has not been done. Like, Archeage started to do it. Archeage was headed in the right direction. And then for some reason, Archeage just thought, nah, we done, you know, being a good game. You know, like that meme, friendship terminated with Archeage. My new friend is now whatever. You've seen that meme, I'm sure. Same thing happened. Like, Archeage had a great idea, had a great concept, and then for some reason decided they'd rather take a dump on it. Like the whole, like if you've never played Archeage, they had a system called labor, and the labor system worked as such: you would get X amount of labor for maximum labor. Premium players got access to more labor, and the premium players' labor regenerated quicker, which did kind of create an unfair advantage for premium players, but at the same time, you could still technically earn it, because you could go and get month of premium time on the actual auction house for in-game currency. So there was no real detriment, per se, to not having permanent, or to, you know, there was no detriment to it, so you just, it was just better if you had it. But everything required labor. You know, you want to chop down that tree? That's labor. You want to mine that rock? Labor. You want to build this boat? Labor. You want to haul those goods from one area to the next? Labor. But there was also another issue with the labor. Oh, hello, zombie spawn down there showing me I have a cave. let's say you have a, I don't know, a grove of trees. In that grove of trees, you can, that's your grove of trees. Another player comes by and says, nice grove of trees, I think I'll take it, and starts stealing your trees. Now, they can do this. This is perfectly allowable in the game. It is a perfectly legal moveset. Like it's a perfectly legal maneuver they can make. I don't agree with it, but I digress. So, as they're sitting there basically taking your trees, this is deemed basically criminal. And they are found as a criminal. It even logs them as a criminal. And they gain infamy. They gain enough infamy, and those infamous players can be hunted down as fugitives from the law and pirates, even. And they can be brought in and face the crime and punishment. Which is interesting. They had the fact that they had a crime and punishment. They had a justice system, essentially. But that's only if their crime went reported. That's the key. Like, people had to find the evidence showing that they performed the crime. And that's where it gets a little sketchy. Because if you couldn't catch them performing the crime, and you didn't see evidence of them doing it afterward, they got away with it. Which, there was a lot of crimes that people got away with in Arcade. However, if they were caught, and you did ring them in as a criminal, they would just gain infamy, and they'd have basically almost like a warrant for their capture, which then fell to PvP. In order to capture players, you had to defeat them in PvP, at which point they were deemed captured by people and had to face a trial for their crimes. And it was an actual trial. Like, it pulled from the player base and said, hey, these players were criminals. How would you like to handle this? And the interesting part was a lot of the players, you would have to go to the court, and in the court you would get a type of sentencing. They would basically come up and say, this person was presumably guilty for da-da-da, and it says exactly the crime they committed. Usually it was like theft of goods and how many counts of theft of goods, etc. Well, there have been some doozies that I've seen come across the little justice blotter that they had in Arcade. And having served on a couple of those juries in Arcade, it was really fun because these people would think that they're getting off scot-free, right? They come in, they plead their case, and they're like, I didn't do it. It was self-defense. Usually in the case of, like, a player's homicide. Like, it was self-defense, and you literally had people trying to craft narratives back and forth, and then it was left up to the jury. Well, as soon as you got found convicted of whatever crime they said you were guilty of, you had to go to prison. Now, the prison system in this game was, again, Arcade was ahead of its time. You could break out of the prison system. You could have your friends break you out of the prison system. And the judge, the adjudicator, was not a player. The court would find out how many charges were severe, and depending on how the severity of the charges would send you to X amount of days in prison. Now, when I say days in prison, I'm not talking just like in-game day-night cycle. No. There was a guy, this was on Arcade when I played it back in the day. This guy was so notorious that he received 366 days of prison time. But not to be dissuaded, there's ways around that. Remember that labor system I told you all about? Well, this is where it comes into play. Using the labor system, you could work in the prison yard, breaking up rocks and everything. You got to keep nothing, so it's not like you earned loot while you were in prison. But as you're breaking up the rocks, you're reducing your prison time. And you would have to get up, use all your labor, break rocks, log off, etc. Well, he didn't want to do any of that. Not this guy. No. This guy had a plan. Boy, did he ever have a plan. His plan was he was going to break out of prison. So he had guild members. You're not allowed to talk to the guild members in prison. But it didn't say you're not allowed to talk to them outside of prison, meaning outside of the game. So he's talking to his IRL friends and members, and they were looking over the prison schematics outside of the game to see how to break him out. Players caught wind of this. And the players were like, okay, we want to know how you're going to break out of prison. We want to watch. So it started. There was players there just sitting like this, just watching as this ship, which was a pretty big ship. It was like, it wasn't one of the transport ships and it wasn't a fishing trawler, as you could get both of those. And it wasn't one of the small pursuit vessels, a tackling vessel, as they were called. Eve used the same terminology of tackling. And this was neither of those ships. That was none of them. So with them not having any smaller ships like that, they brought along like their big man of war, so to speak. Which didn't take them all that long to build, but they still brought it along. Had the cannons. It was all raring to go. Oh boy, was it ready. And they came in and they fired a cannon volley at the prison gate, the side gate. They send a guy out of the boat to try to, like, I guess, taunt the guards off. I don't know what he was planning, but it didn't really work that well. But anyway, their prison break started at that moment. And they were dead set on getting this guy out of prison. Now, I didn't stick around to watch the whole prison break. But what I heard later that evening was that they were successful. And they did break the guy out. He became a very notorious pirate because you had two factions that you could align with, and if you aligned with neither of those factions and decided to become a pirate, there was that faction as well. They had a whole pirate faction. Well, he aligned with the pirates, and he had no safe haven to go to outside of pirate shores, essentially. He was also one of the players that got the Black Pearl. And yes, it was called the Black Pearl. Well, it wasn't called the Black Pearl. It was the Flying Dutchman. Because it was they had to name it after the legendary ship of Blackbeard the Pirate. The game did, not the players. But they had... Yeah, they had that, and they were sailing away with it, and they became almost like a pirate faction overnight. Just because the one guy did not want to serve his prison time. 366 days. Well, people set out to find these players because they became very notorious pirates. And it was fun because there was a big hunt on for them, and I mean it went bananas from that point on. And they there was this very concentrated effort to find this notorious set of pirates. They did eventually find them. Somebody actually stole the boat, too. Because you could steal boats. Now, the fun part about a boat, when you stole a boat in Arcade, you could sail it as long as you wanted. The only time you couldn't sail it was when the original owner of the boat got within, I think it was like 150 meters of the boat, and decided to unsummon it. Thing is there was a caveat to that as well. And that caveat was the owner or the boat had to have nobody at the helm. So there had to be nobody at the wheel when they decided to unsummon the boat. Which was hilarious because that guy, as far as I know, did not get his boat back for a long time. Because they sailed it to a completely unknown area. Like, they sailed it to one of the continents and then hit it off into some area. And there they had it as like a trophy for catching that pirate. Because it was a big PvP battle on the seas. And that PvP battle was, like, there was NPCs out there as well. Mobs. It was insane. Like, and I'm hoping Ashes of Creation taps into that. And has a very similar thing. Whoa. That was a bug of some description. Don't know what it was. It was a bug of some description, though. Good thing it wasn't in my coffee. Beautiful. So I didn't want to have to ruin my coffee. Oh, it's a ladybug. There. It's gone. So, the game was great. I mean, Arcade really was on to something big. And they just didn't keep players. And it's a shame. It really was a shame because I mean it was one of the things I looked forward to playing the most when I would, come back from school. I mean, I can't say school, but when I would come back from what have you, I look forward to playing it. I'd get home and it's like, oh man, I need to get on Arcade and check this and check that and do these other things, and it was always that you felt like you were missing out, Not really a fear of missing out, but just like you felt like if you didn't get on, you would be missing out of something. And so I guess that was what really drove the game to its success, to be honest with you. And if Ashes of Creation does it right, you're gonna see some serious stuff. I hesitate to call it like the WoW killer, because a lot of people like to do that. They like to designate, a game as the WoW killer, and then they fail to effectively put a dent in anything World of Warcraft. Which, I play World of Warcraft, so I can't, like, hate on World of Warcraft. But it's like, just don't, whatever you do, just do not call your game the WoW Killer. Just don't do it. Because it's not good. Because it's just going to lead you down a portal to sadness. So, that aside about talking about MMOs. Oh yeah, by the way, there's something else I'm going to do. I'm going to play another game. Yes, it is an MMO. It's an old MMO that I used to play ages ago. And it's quite the old MMO for sure. It is Dungeon Fighter Online. If you've never seen Dungeon Fighter Online, it is an incredible game. Highly recommend anybody play Dungeon Fighter Online. Absolutely highly recommend it. Like I said, though, it is an old game. It's been around a while. That's a deep hole. Hello. Platinum. Whoa. Do not do that, sir. But yeah, Dungeon Fighter Online's been around since it's been around as long as World of Warcraft. And you wouldn't think that, you know, it would be that good of a game, but it's a really good title. Ooh, that's a doozer. Got to be very careful where I'm walking. As there could be traps and explosives everywhere. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to be calling it soon here. I still don't have enough to get an anvil. Like that. Well, that ends the episode. I even just said I have to watch where I'm going. I'm gonna hit a button, and there's traps and danger. All of a sudden, gets ripped to shreds by a boulder. Oh well, I had fun. I might have to try this again, but I hope everybody enjoyed this as well. That's pathetic. Anyway, hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good one.